I know this might be shocking to hear, but metagaming isn't always a bad thing.
There's a grain of truth to that, Ted. Why don't we discuss why it's okay and can be good for your players to metagame in your RPGs?
I'm Nerdarchy Ted.
I'm Nerdarchy Dave. Welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds, by nerds.
I know what's going to happen in this video. Do you?
So I think we have to start off with, like, what is metagaming? Like, metagaming is one of the age-old things that will start a fight in a D&D game or a discussion. For sure, it's like bringing up alignment, pretty much.
It's bad. So metagaming is essentially using knowledge that your character would not have, usually to be beneficial. So it's like, oh, well, we're fighting a red dragon. My character doesn't know anything about red dragons. So you know what? I'm not going to use, my standard fire attack that I always use because I know it's not going to do any damage. That's metagaming.
That in its simplest form is truly metagaming. Possibly even a little bit of oversimplification.
Yes, I mean, I took it down to its barest bones. Yeah. But yeah.
So the next question is, like, why does it have a negative connotation? You kind of alluded to that, in your example of, metagaming, and it's considered cheating, right? I guess is at the end of the day, like, if we want to use another simplified version, most GMs and even other players would consider cheating at the table.
And it's true. Whether you're talking about, oh, well, I want to make sure that, my character is doing the utmost to be helpful to the party, whatever little nickel and dime, whatever beneficial aspect that you can get out of it. So, like, I'm usually careful, like, because I've played this game for so long, I do ask the question of, like, well, what would my character know here? Can I get some kind of check? We've talked about for years having your character have a go-to when you're not sure. And yeah, there are times that I've used my firebolt against something that I know the fire's not gonna work, but I do it anyway. Because that's how you play the game. Use your go-to, and if it means it's a problem, it's a problem. I don't want to metagame.
So I guess, the next thing is, like, how do we come to this topic? What made us decide to talk about metagaming? And also, we want to talk about it from a different angle. Ted kind of started talking about it already a little bit. But, like, I'm a huge metagamer. Ted has already talked about metagaming, but not in the way that most people mean it. And also, I've also just heard the arguments that against metagaming, that, like, if you lived in that world, you would, hear stories and stuff. And I don't know if I completely buy it, because, I don't think, information travels in a medieval style world the same way it would, in modern day. And sometimes I think it's looked at through that lens. But we're going to get into all that.
But before we dive too deep into that, why don't we take a look at the Seeds of Decay?
So Seeds of Decay is on Kickstarter right now, and it is based off of a tabletop game from Splattered Ink Games. Hit Point Press is the publisher on this one. They've done a lot of fantastic projects in the past. And Daubers is the game that it's based off of. And think like David the Gnome, Smurfs, tiny little creatures. If you've ever wanted to run a campaign where you're all tiny little creatures living in your own tiny little world, this is for you.
This is a primer that we picked up at PAX Unplugged.
You're going to find 3 module rule systems for inventions, contraptions, and foraging, 30 plus original spells, 30 plus fully illustrated items, 60 new monsters, create your own playable forest animal species, new classes, subclasses, backgrounds, feats, and more. There's an adventure that spans levels 1 through 8. And it's just an immersive world, and, it's just another way to play D&D, another element to add to your game. There will be a link in the description and one of these cards for you to go check out the Kickstarter.
All right, so we spent a whole bunch of time talking about, what metagaming is, why you shouldn't do it. So now let's look at it from that other side that Dave was talking about, and what kind of metagaming can you do that's actually encouraged and helpful.
So, one of the things is, like, and here's a piece of metagaming that we all do, right? One, you can use metagaming beneficially to cause action. Guess what? We all do this. We all take the DM's plot hooks. We all go on the adventure, because if not, why are you here at the table to begin with? This is just something all players can do, and usually do for the most part.
When the person comes running through the town, help, I'm insert problem here. Every single player at the table who's played the role-playing game before understands that's a quest hook. And when you say, yes, I'm going to go talk to that person, you're metagaming. It's not a bad thing because there's no way to not know that that's what it is.
Yeah, for sure. And also it just causes, like we said, just causing action to happen can be good instead of waiting for the DM to give you stuff to do. And also it kind of lets the DM know what you're interested in doing. So if you take charge and, maybe even use out-of-game knowledge to be like, I want to do this quest for this thing, and your GM could say yay or nay, or be like, you have to research it here or there, but it can cause the game to happen and get things moving.
Beyond making things happen, there's also the desire to make memorable encounters, memorable things. And this is one that I think, Dave really excels at, and it's using metagame in the opposite direction. And I've had him do this in my games, and I've seen him do it in others. And that's when it's like, oh, if you use this type of attack on this type of monster, something nasty is going to happen. Well, insert Dave, okay, I'm going to cause chaos, and this is going to be hilarious.
Yeah, I've been known to metagame to the detriment of my own party because my character doesn't actually know. My half-ogre Jogo was a notorious unarmed fighter and grappler. Tried grappling, Black Pudding because that's what he does. That didn't hurt the party, but it sure did hurt him. He learned he didn't do that again. He was going through a cavern that was very cold, and he decided he would warm himself up with a torch. I knew it was full of brown mold. I know what happens when you add fire to brown mold. He doesn't. It made sense from the character's point of view, but it made things more difficult for everybody else, including them, right? So, I like to make things happen, make action happen, but also make interesting things happen. And I won't do the same things over and over again because that doesn't make sense. But what does make sense is for me to take Dave's knowledge and then have my characters do something contradictive to that information because they don't have it. But once they learn from once they do it, they can then learn from their mistakes, and it does generally create memorable things at the table. Begrudgingly, my other players grumble a little bit sometimes.
I look at these stories and I see moments where, like, yes, I'm on the opposite side of the GM screen, but even on the times where we share, the we're both players, I look at these things. As long as we get through it all okay, those are moments that become stories. Those are things that people are going to share. It's like, I can't believe you did that. Did you not know? Oh, I did know. Wait, you purposely did that knowing what the outcome was going to be? Those stories get shared over and over again. And it's what's, allowed us to do this kind of stuff and to be able to share these kind of experiences because it's metagaming for the story. It's making things that are fun and memorable and making the action happen.
Yeah, I play D&D and RPGs to have fun, not to win, right? So, that's my objective. And sometimes for me, fun is just creating chaos at the table and seeing what happens. It's not because I want bad things to happen to the other players' characters. I just want to infuse chaos into the game and see what they do with it. I want to see what stories we make out of that chaos and see what the GM does with that as well. I think most GMs kind of appreciate. I appreciate it when players at my table just do things, and if they do things that are detrimental to them, okay, I'm going to probably reward them somehow for that later.
So, that you kind of briefly mentioned, that, but by making the action happen, you're going to break up those moments of indecision. You're going to have the spot where things could be faltering. No, you just keep on rolling, you keep on doing. So, yeah, there's a way to metagame for the betterment of the party, and there's a way to metagame for the betterment of the story and the action, and that's the angle that we want to preach. No, I don't want you to take knowledge that your character should have so that you benefit, but to the benefit of the story, to the benefit of the action. Yeah, go ahead and do those all day.
I don't know if it's metagaming, but the YOLO Barbarian is great for this because it's when there's indecision. analysis paralysis, and everyone's just staring at the door going, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? Let's make a plan. And it's like literally 15 minutes in real time is dragged on, and they're staring at the door, and the barbarian's like, I kick the door in, right? And then like whatever's going to happen. And I think for the most part, the player knows it might be trapped. There might be a monster on the other side of it.
It might be both.
It might be both. But it's like they're just tired of the rest of the players at the table just talking and planning and plotting. And some people like really like that, but it can really bog down the session for the players that don't like that. So that's where you can infuse a bit of chaos and metagaming. And I don't think it's necessarily bad. Depending on the group, like you wouldn't want to do it all the time, and those players should restrain them sometimes. And that's the other thing. Like even when I do stuff like that, I do tend to try and take that into consideration. Like if the rest of the group has spent hours working out this elaborate plan, I'm probably not going to YOLO them and metagame necessarily to destroy their plan. Like I might metagame to make something interesting happen, but I would never do it just to mess up their plans and mess with people at the table. And that's ultimately too, like, right, if you're metagaming to have more fun and to have, you know, more fun happen at the table, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're doing it to like take away from the fun, to beat the DM, like, you know, that stuff is kind of lame and kindergarten stuff that should be left behind. And rarely do I feel like we ever have that come up in our games anymore.
True. And in each of the examples that Dave has made mention, he is putting his character in danger. Metagaming so that you're okay and someone else is in danger, that's, you know, that's a no bueno, that's a no good. So look at it from that perspective. If danger is going to come to someone because of your metagaming action, it should be you, not the party or whatever. I mean, the party could be incidentally involved in the case of the brown mold, but you know, I'm going to grapple the gelatinous cube. Yeah, that's on you, dude.
But you know, what are some things that you've done in your games that you knew were a bad idea, but you did them anyway? You probably metagame to do that. Let us know in the comments below. Share your stories with the Nerdarchy community.
While you're down there, don't forget to do all those fun things like share, subscribe, click that notification bell. You know the drill.
Quick reminder, we drop new videos here on the channel on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So come on back. Can't wait till then. No worries, we've got you covered. Check out 5 ways to mitigate metagamers at your table.
So until next time, stay nerdy.